I replaced the top end on a 93 Buick Roadmaster wagon, and I've had pretty good success with this. The hardest part about all of this really was the electronics after the top end was removed and replaced with a carburetor. The computer had no idea what the hell was going on once it did that. And a lot of auxiliary equipment didn't work because of that. Alright, so let's talk about the fuel pump. Let's talk about the air conditioning. So if you go to now this is a 93. This is very different, I'm sure, in other model years. But on a 93, if you go to your passenger wheel well, you got a fuel pump relay, and then you got an AC compressor relay over here. For the fuel pump, you need to supply a ground to this relay. The computer supplies a ground. So that's this black wire here with a white stripe. This is your ground. This I have running to a chassis ground over here by the battery. And then I also have this green wire with a white stripe. You can see it right there. This I have running to a switch inside the car. So I basically am picking up voltage from the battery. I'm going all the way over through the firewall to get to a toggle switch, and that toggle switch basically closes this relay right here that I added, and that provides voltage to the coil in this relay right here so that this relay closes and the fuel pump runs. It's as simple as that. You need to give it a ground. You need to give it some kind of voltage to the coil so the relay closes and your fuel pump will run. For the air conditioning, when you turn the air conditioning on inside the car, you are going to get a signal on one of these blue wires to this relay, and this controls the coil. The computer supplies the ground to this relay. Sorry if that wasn't in focus or if that wasn't in view. These two blue wires right here, one of these goes to the coil, and that's your air conditioning demand signal. And then the computer supplies a ground to this green wire with a white stripe. Now, the computer, again, does not know that doesn't know about any of this stuff, so it's not giving that ground. So you have to supply that ground. So I have this white wire with the green, this green wire with the white stripe going to a ground. And then once I do that, everything works. Everything comes to life. The air conditioning compressor cycles. It works normally. There's a switch in the power steering pump that turns the air conditioning compressor off when you're demanding power steering. That no longer works, but the air conditioning works. That's all I really care about. Now, is this as simple as putting the wire to ground? Yeah, but the air conditioning is going to run constantly when you have a demand signal on one of these blue wires if you do that. So what I did was this ground wire right here, which is where the air conditioning goes to, the same one that the fuel pump goes to. That ground path actually goes through this cherry switch right here. It is part number E6800A0. And the cool thing about this cherry switch is they're cheap and they have a lot of stroke. And the best thing about this is the switching action occurs early in the stroke, and then there's still lots of stroke left in the switch. So I took this cherry switch, again, part number, I believe it's E6800A0. That cherry switch is attached to my, it's used in conjunction with my carburetor linkage. So as I apply the accelerator pedal, once it gets to a certain point in the engine RPM, in this particular case, it's about, I don't know, like 4,000 RPMs, 3.5, it pushes this switch, and I still have full range of motion with my gas pedal. But what it basically does is I'm using, you know, this washer with part of a pipe welded to it attached to the throttle linkage to actuate this switch. What this does is this basically turns off my air conditioning compressor at wide open throttle, which is something that your computer does. But again, because you're missing all this stuff over here, the computer doesn't know what the hell is going on, and that function no longer works. So that cherry switch takes the place of that function. Again, this worked out pretty well. This thing cooks, and I'm just trying to help you guys out if you guys are thinking about doing the same thing to your sweet ass wagon. Alright, have a good night.